So they say we're going to start the show right now. Hello, everyone who's listening. Very excited. This is Shawn Lesser, your host for the A Real Mental Health Break. Just give you, for people who don't know me, a little bit about me, and then we'll jump into this and we'll also introduce our guest. So, Shawn Lesser, a little background on me. Born in Brooklyn, grew up in Long Island. I went to school at Syracuse University, did 15 years, I did international institutional equity sales, selling stocks to banks overseas. And then in 2007, with our partner of mine, we started the first impact investing investment bank, raising money for companies, raising money for funds, doing different events. Now, that's all terrific, Shawn. What the heck does that have to do with mental health? Well, I had my own mental health challenges, was in some treatment centers, suffered from depression, anxiety, etc. I am on the other side of that now, going around 5 months or so. So we, from the Real Mental Health Foundation, our goal is to help other men, women, and families that are going through similar situations. And this is happening all over the world, all over the planet. So talking about the planet or the world, I don't know if that's a good segue, but I'm going to introduce Jen Libby to the show. Jen, are you there?
I'm here. It's great to meet you and see you, Shawn. I'm happy to be here. I was just checking out, LinkedIn says I'm here to talk about teenagers, and I do
Yes.
love to talk about teenagers. I'm a big
Good.
fan of Gen Z, so they are the teenagers right now.
Yes, and I have two of them. So I want to start out with this might be the most important question. So I don't want to get you nervous, but what are you going to be for Halloween?
Oh, yes, that is an important question,
Yes,
Shawn. And
yes.
we, I didn't know that that was going to be the question, but you
Yeah,
do
it's
give
okay.
me a chance to brag a little bit. We have been winners. I don't want to jinx it, but
Okay.
we have a great Halloween parade in our town. And so we
Hmm.
have won maybe like over 5 years in a row,
Wow.
in part because I have four daughters. So we
Uh-huh.
have strength in numbers.
Uh-huh.
This year we have, I don't know, maybe 10 or 11 people, and we are doing a Barbie theme.
Okay. Okay.
My husband twisting his arm to be Ken, but it's awesome in that I have like five of those shirts, that make you look like you have real muscles.
Yeah.
They're like t-shirts.
Uh-huh.
So we'll have like, five guys with that, and then my daughters, and then a few other Barbies in the mix. It's going to be awesome. So
I
we
don't know if that's going to win because there's going to be a lot of Kens and Barbies, but it sounds good.
that's it, Sean. We're a collective group, right? So the
Okay.
more that you have, the more it's like Barbie land all together because looking at the trends, I do think it's going to be a very popular costume, but we're all in it together.
Yes, yes. So I'm going to tell you my costume because it's been the same for the last couple of years. So I have a giant baby face that I put on, and then I have a suit that I wear. So it's like Boss Baby. And I like it because you get these strange reactions from little kids. Either they're like laughing at you, like, look at that giant baby, or they're crying, or there's always some kind of reaction that's going on. So I will go from that to the reaction. Also, I have a 14-year-old and a 16-year-old teenagers. I'm not sure what they're dressing up as, but I'd like to learn more ways to be, the best that I can be with them, Jen.
Well,
So
first, Sean,
yeah,
can we just do the next podcast with the Boss Baby head? Is that possible?
that's no problem. I love the Boss Baby
Yeah.
head. Yeah,
Okay, perfect.
yeah,
Perfect.
no
Oh,
problem.
that's definitely happening. So you 14 and 16 years old, boys, girls?
I got my girl just turned 16. My son is 14. They're 13 months apart.
Yeah. I think you, like a lot of dads and moms, but will say, to me, how do I connect with my kid, right? Like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
they seem to be on their phones all the time. They seem to be disconnected. They seem to, not be hearing me when I'm talking to them. And if you talk to kids, what do you think kids say about what they want from their parents? Any
Attention.
ideas? Not exactly, but they do
Okay.
want to be heard. If we think about the thing that I hear the most from a pile of kids who were teenagers, Gen Zers, they really want parents to hear them.
Mm-hmm.
So kids want to be heard and parents want to connect. Like, why is there such a disconnect, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think there's a lot of reasons for that. I mean, obviously, social media plays a role in terms of being super, obviously, addictive tech. We know there was
Mm-hmm.
recently a lawsuit yesterday. Um, because phones are truly addictive, the way that the brain works, with dopamine processing, we know those processing levels have changed. However, don't give up hope as a parent, because I think there are certainly like tangible ways to connect with your kids. One of the things, you know, I'll say, and people sometimes, we overlook this, right? Because
Hmm.
parents will be like, well, I'm trying to talk to my kid and, they're like ignoring me.
Yeah, yeah.
True, but I always think about the car rides are probably the,
I was thinking
best.
about the car rides. That's what I was thinking. Go ahead.
And even let's say this, if I would give kids a little bit of ownership in terms of like what kind of music they want to listen to, I know that
Hmm.
that's a way to get into their world. Um, if they have headphones, I would just ask, like, can you, what do you want to listen to?
Right,
The
right,
other
right.
piece of the equation is asking kids what their opinions are. Now, the first 15 times, they're going to be like, or I mean, maybe they'll give you their opinion. But
Yeah.
even if you're asking, like, well, what do you think about this or this?
Hmm.
One other, like, in could it be a current event? Could it be, something or another? Parents are often saying to kids, like, how was your day at school? And the kid's like,
Yes,
fine, right?
yes.
That doesn't
That's,
really give us a lot of information.
yes.
One thing I'll say to parents, and that's good, and I say this to kids as well, um, when you're talking to your 14 or your 16-year-old, how is your day at school, like 1 to 10? 10 being the best, 1 being the worst. And really kind of create that 1 to 10. And that's a good strategy, I would say, to use with teenagers anyway. They are actually like a poll generation. If you notice on like Instagram or polls, they like
Okay.
to like fill out those surveys. Fun fact, actually, we have a group of interns, and I was shocked by this. They were saying that they could get lost in hours doing surveys online. Now, when's the
Really?
last time that you or I filled out a survey online, like especially one that took hours or even like 5 minutes? But I was like, how in the world do you get lost for hours doing surveys online? And they're like, well, I don't know. I just want to be heard. Like, I think my opinion matters. And so I'll end up like taking all this time. I should be doing my homework, but instead I'm filling out these surveys. So keep that in the back of your mind. But I also think it's a way to quickly gauge, if you can kind of think like a survey producer, how to, as a parent, gauge, well, I like this the most, I like this the least, a scale of 1 to 10. How likely are you to do blah, 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 blah? Like kind of
Hmm.
use that style of communication to get conversations started.
Hmm.
I've had a lot of parents do that with good success. So that's one strategy. Go ahead.
So, two things. One, maybe this is my bad. We should have done a better introduction in the beginning of who you are and what you do. Secondly, when you say heard, right, how do you define that? So you can take either one of those first or second. Uh, yeah, so those are my
All right.
questions.
I'm Jen Libby. I have been a therapist working with, I would say, high risk adolescents for over 20 years in various capacities, both in hospital settings, as well as school settings, as well as secure treatment, and more so in private practice for over 20 years. I'm also the founder of Promly. Promly is a new social ecosystem built for Gen Z with Gen Z. We have had a team of over 200 young people help to build what they want to see in a new social network that also provides, well, I should say, we match kids based on 20 things they want to do before they're 20. Our platform is specifically for 13 to 19-year-olds with AI age recognition software so that we're keeping the unsavory folks out. But I shouldn't say unsavory, pedophiles. We just don't want pedophiles on there.
Sure.
But also, we, through our nonprofit, provide multiple layers of free mental health support, teen lines, talk lines, peer to peer lines, as well as biofeedback for panic attacks from the back of the phone. So it will take your heart rate and coach you through panic or anxiety with different strategies. The phone actually vibrates when you're using the app. So it's great. All of that's free for kids across the country. So that's that part of it. I'm also a mother to 4 lovely girls,
Hmm.
ages 15, 11, 9, and 6. And I am a super fan of teenagers. So people often say, um, how do you work with teenagers so much? I love teenagers, and
Hmm.
I've worked with them for years. I'm constantly empowered by them, and I learn so much by taking the time to talk with them. I'm constantly blown away by how great they are. So that's me. And then the second question was what?
When you say that they want to be heard, right? Can you explain what you mean by that specifically?
Sure. So even when years ago, when the whole mental health crisis was emerging,
Hmm.
with young people, and this was pre-pandemic. So this is 2014, 15, 16. I would constantly hear from my clients, Jen, like adults created social media. They know it's harming kids. They know it's killing
Yeah.
kids. Like, why aren't the adults stepping up to fix it? Do they just not care about us? Like, are
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
some kind of experiment generation? And like most adults at the time, I would say, well, those people at Google, they're really smart. They're doing great things in education. I'm sure they have a plan for this, right? I know lots of friends that work at Facebook. Like, I'm sure they have a plan for this. Sit tight, guys. I'm sure it'll be okay. As we then saw the teen suicide rates go up so exponentially, and again,
Hmm.
pre-pandemic, I'll give you for instance, when I moved to this area in New Jersey, there were only 3 teen suicides in the general
Hmm.
geographic area where I treat kids from years 2003 to like 2009, 10. And then we saw a major increase of anywhere from 6 to 9 teen suicides in that same exact geographic area. And then at 2020, we landed at 15 teen suicides in the same exact geographic area. Well, that's anecdotal evidence in the sense of it's just my practice area, and I'm just kind
Yeah.
of more
Yeah.
aware of it. We're seeing those trends obviously around the country. So when kids say, I want to be heard,
Right.
they're seeing the same things, but they're like when we talk about therapists who are boots on the ground, these kids are boots on the ground every day. They're so aware of things that are dangerous. They're so aware of what's going on with their friends. They're so scared about what's going on maybe within themselves, within their siblings, within their friends. And they look around and they say, nobody's really doing anything. So when they
Hmm.
say they want to be heard, it's because things are so bad that
Right.
but they don't know who do you talk, like who do you yell at, or who do you talk to,
Right.
like what do you do to be heard when you're 15 years old, right? And even still, like it's kind of a taboo subject, right? So
Yeah.
well, if I start talking about suicide to it's like are my parents going to freak out? Or if I start talking about my friend that's self-harming, what's going to happen? Like, is everybody going to like lose it, and then I'm going to be outed?
Hmm.
There's a lot of different areas that I think kids truly want to be heard. I mean, again, that's like scratching the surface, because I think they're like, we talk about a million different things that kids have, strong perspective on,
Hmm.
um, but don't often have an avenue to communicate that.
No, that's super helpful. So let's look at this from a couple of different levels, and I myself once was at a 10, but people are at a 2, a 4, a 6 at any time, and kids are like a 2, a 4, a 6 at any time, right? So let's just take it like basics. I'm sitting in the car with my son, right, driving him, and me and my son have a good relationship, but it's not like we talk a lot, right? Because I don't think we're big talkers, but it's hard to get a conversation going, and in a certain way, you don't want to like poke them the wrong way. So I'm not sure what I'm getting at, but how are you starting these
Sure.
conversations to get them engaged?
Let's say this. Start with music, right? You're flipping through Spotify,
Mhm.
and you're like, hey, pick a song. Like who are you listening to right now?
All right, all right.
I'm listening to, well, I like Noah Khan, but like,
Yeah,
Little Yachty, or
yeah, yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
And listen, like, I don't care if you like the music or you don't like the
yeah.
music. Like, just tune in and be like, all right, scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the best, one being the worst. Like, how much do you like, does this guy like speak to you? Like, is he like, how popular is he? Like, it doesn't even have to be
Hmm.
that personal, but kind of like,
Hmm.
what do you think? Um, and the kid may be like, I don't know. I just kind of like it, Dad. Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's what he
whatever.
would say. Yeah,
It doesn't matter. It
yeah.
doesn't matter what the answer is. It
Hmm.
matters that you're showing interest.
Okay, okay, okay,
So
okay.
don't expect any great, like,
Yeah,
revelation
yeah.
here.
Okay.
But you might get one, you might
Yeah.
not. what you're demonstrating is I'm open, I'm willing to learn about your world, and it sets up the foundation for future conversations, right? When I say 15 conversations that kind of you feel like you're like, I'm a failure, they go nowhere. I'm
Yeah,
terrible
that's
at
what I'm saying. Yeah, that's what I'm like, am I a bad dad? Right? That you're thinking like, what am I doing wrong? Like, am I doing something wrong? Because you're self-conscious about that too.
well, but the deal is kids hear you.
Yeah,
They hear you way more
I
than
think they
you.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I also think too, there's something about like we say vulnerability is the root of intimacy, right? Like
Hmm.
that idea of making yourself more approachable, more
Hmm.
vulnerable,
Hmm.
allows for there to be a deeper level of connection.
Hmm.
So when you think about talking to, like even kids love parent stories, like as much as they say that they don't like them, they do like
Okay.
them. So
All right.
they'll roll their eyes. Dad, like literally, Dad, have I heard this 45 times?
Yes,
Like,
this happened like yesterday with my daughter. And I said, well,
right,
yeah.
right.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I heard this one, Daddy.
But I think it's like pick a new story if they've heard it before, because you
Yeah,
don't want to keep saying the same story because then they'll think you
yeah.
really don't listen. But from the standpoint of being aware that they want to know what it was like for you when
Hmm.
you're your age. Do you connect
Hmm.
with them, right? Like, do
Okay.
you get it that it's like harder? And you could be like, no, dude, it was like not yet anywhere near as hard as it is for you guys because we didn't have this, that, and whatever, like,
Sure.
but again, expect you're going to get the like, yeah,
Okay.
whatever.
All right. Yeah.
It doesn't matter. I know because I'll hear from kids and they'll be like, yeah, my dad always talks about blah, 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 blah. I
Yeah.
think it's fascinating too. Kids now, like if you listen to kids' playlists, like
Hmm.
will have somehow I have like all my daughter's friends' playlists on our
Yeah.
Spotify,
Yeah.
which I love. But I go through and I'm like, how is like ACDC on here? Like, how do you even know who that is?
Right.
They're like,
Right.
oh, my dad loves ACDC, so he always plays this song. Well, you'll find if you look at kids' playlists, they'll randomly have like these little like parent influences,
Hmm. Hmm.
Bon Jovi. Bon Jovi. Who's listening to John Bon Jovi at 15 years old? Love it. They love it.
Right.
Like,
Right.
but I'm struck. It's like seems to be, and with all of our interns too, I'll have them, again, rate on a 1 to 10.
Yep.
Like, this person, do you like that? Like from a musical standpoint. And I'm struck by how many times they'll reference much older artists, and then they'll say, "Well, my mom is a super fan," or
Right. Right. Right.
"My dad." And they're on
Very
their personal playlist. It's not even like so you have an impact.
okay. No, that's good to know. Now I'm going to take it like a step further. So my daughter or my son comes home, and you could tell that they're not something happened, right? And then they're in their room or whatever. You come in, and you're like, you could tell. And how do you get that information out of them, or should you be trying to get that information out of them?
Um, Couple things. I mean, every kid's a little bit different, right? I would text them,
Text them.
like, yeah, practically
Okay.
speaking.
Okay.
They live in the world of online, right? So
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
you're like, hey, you seemed a little down, um, I'm here.
Yeah.
Um, we can talk or not talk, but you seemed a little down.
Mm-hmm.
What's up? You
Mm-hmm.
know, again, they could be like not responding or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, then when they, come down a little bit later, be like, did you get my text? Or, it doesn't actually matter that much if you get an engagement. You
Okay.
know, it's more that you're showing as a parent that you're you're seeing them, you're hearing them, even if they're not talking, you're seeing what's happening and you're responding to that. You're
Okay.
tuned, right? Versus being totally tuned out. I also am, one of the things that we see, oxytocin is like a major connecting chemical for human beings, right? And we generate oxytocin through our eyes. So eye to eye contact actually creates like the highest level of oxytocin. If you're holding a little baby, that
Mm-hmm.
creates the highest level of oxytocin. I always say to, kids like cats and little puppies and kittens actually are like a close second because you can sustain that eye contact. Well, can you imagine there's so many times we don't make eye contact, right? There's how many
Mm-hmm.
not making eye contact. Well, that means they're not really getting their oxytocin needs met. So
Mm-hmm.
if your kid is somebody who can, tolerate like sitting next to them and putting your arm around them, that's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Um, even if it's like, well, listen, if you're upset, we don't even have to talk, but I just would kind of like to just sit with you. I just
Right.
want you to
Right.
know I'm here. I won't say anything. I'll just sit and we can just hang. But I
Right.
want you to know I see what's going on and I'm here. You
Right.
know, if you want
Right.
me to hold your hand, I will. I'll give you a hug, but I don't want to I want to be respectful.
I got you.
But I
I
see
got you.
something's up, you know.
So I'm imagining like one headphone in the ear with the
Fine,
iPhone, but that's yeah.
fine, doesn't
Okay.
matter. Yeah.
This is very helpful to me. I think this session is just for me. Sorry, everybody else. So and then the next thing is like, okay, then how do you know you have different levels, right? Someone's upset, but how do you know, okay, this is more serious type of area? Sometimes you need professional folks to intervene. Like, how do you, someone's upset, but then how do you know it gets to the next level when they're like, okay, I'm in the red zone here?
I think well, a couple things. I mean, there's it's sort of vague in the sense of like there's obvious like red flags,
Yeah.
if a kid is self-harming,
Hmm.
if there's, if they're pervasively sort of depressed and you
Hmm.
really they're, we say like over 2 weeks of really not doing the things that they, used to be able to do. They seem kind of chronically unhappy.
Hmm.
Or even they seem like everything's fine, but you just know something else is going on. Even asking them and saying, do you want to talk to somebody? Like being open about the, like there's therapists, I can help you, to talk to somebody, um, and they may say no and be like, well, I know it's helpful. Like kids are pretty tuned in from a mental health standpoint, probably
Yes.
more so than most parents, I would say. Um, and, some kids will be like, maybe I'll talk to somebody. Um, but I would also ask them, well, who are you talking to? Like, if you're not talking to me, who are you talking to? Are you talking to your friends? Are you talking, like who's in the wheelhouse there?
Right.
Um, I also think, and I wouldn't hesitate on this, like if you have a concern
Hmm.
and and you even say, you know, ha- has suicide been on your mind?
Hmm.
And say it pretty basic. Many times parents get really nervous when I use the word suicide. But I can tell you, kids are way, way, way overly exposed to suicide content, serious
Hmm.
content, things like that. They know of many, many, many serious things. So you asking about them and thoughts of suicide is not off. And we know, parents used to think, well, I would put the idea in their head.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, they're surrounded by those ideas. There's no getting around that. So you being on the front end of it and saying, okay, have you had thoughts of suicide? The reality is most kids at some point, most humans at some point do have some thought of suicide. That's
Hmm.
not uncommon.
Hmm.
Um, the teenage brain is programmed to be black and white. So
Hmm.
between, like let's imagine the ages of 15 to 25, this is like a brain that from an evolutionary standpoint is programmed to be very extreme. Part
Hmm.
of that is protective, right? Like so that you really do freak out if you sense danger. Um, Back in the day, we were fighting the lions, the tigers, and the wolves, right? But
Right. Right.
so who would we send out to fight the lions or tigers and the wolves? We send out your 15-year-old. Well, I sit back in the cave eating my berries. These guys are actually out doing the hard work. Well, that brain, pattern is still there. It's still protected. But what that means is that little things are going to feel like really big things. So
Sure.
as normal adult, you may say, it's no big deal. It's just your first relationship. First relationship, that's probably going to be one of the hardest things that a kid deals with, is like a breakup in a first relationship. Because the way the brain's programmed, it feels much more extreme. Well, they were only together for 3 months or, whatever. Yeah, it
Hmm.
doesn't matter. Like that, what that feels like for that kid in that time of their life is pretty extreme.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
being tuned into that's really important. And so why, do kids sometimes think in extremes? Well, because they feel in extremes. So
Hmm.
when you think about that, and that really doesn't end till like your mid 20s, essentially. even still, like rewards outweigh consequences in the teenage brain by, we used to think it was by like 2 times. We now know it's by like 13 times in the teenage brain. Okay, well, imagine that, like makes you make some pretty crappy decisions sometimes,
Yes,
but
yes, yes.
like, we've all been there.
Yeah,
Things that you would do when you were young, you're like, that was a really bad idea. Who knew?
yeah.
Um, but again, getting into that mindset of really understanding that this is a really critical time for kids, and emotionally they're popping all over the place, and that's very normal.
Okay, okay.
But not being afraid to have the hard conversations again, even if they're like, no, like, no, bro, like, whatever, like, it's
Yeah.
not, I don't feel that way. Okay, but they know that you are tuned in enough to have the
Mm-hmm.
serious questions, so that should they feel like that, they know you can handle that conversation without freaking out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. That makes sense. And then this always comes up, but uh, of course, social media, and they're on their phones all the time. I'm on my phone all the time, right? How are you supposed to be policing that, or like, is there limits, or what's what are you supposed to do?
I think it depends on the age of the kid and the relationship and what's going on in their life, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
um, there's a lot of push for, I would certainly say kids under uh, 13, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
should be policing every piece of that. There's a lot of movement even to say kids under 13 shouldn't even have access to social media. I actually just heard from the Surgeon General, and he was saying, it's just developmentally, their brains are not equipped for that. And, really trying to push parents to not give their kids, even access to phones before 13. I tend to agree with that from what I see, also from the kind of exposures. I'll give you for instance, the average porn exposure for boys is 8 years old. The average porn exposure for girls is 10 years old. You
Mm-hmm.
might want to be aware of that. Those
Oh,
kind
I
of,
didn't know. Yeah.
yeah, extreme visuals don't leave a kid's brain. So they
Mm-hmm.
will be into their brain at like for the rest of their life. And you might want to be checking in on that. That's like a whole nother podcast, Shawn, we can do, because
We'll do that
that's like,
next, that next one. That's the next one.
that's a big subject area. But even from the standpoint of kids being bullied, that happens so fast, and
Mm-hmm.
there's so many layers to it. I mean, I can't, I'm blown away constantly by what I hear from like my interns, and even
Mm-hmm.
still they'll say, I wish I didn't get Snapchat at age 14. Like that was a bad choice. Um, so yeah, do I think you should be policing like your 16-year-olds? Maybe not so much.
Right.
Um, but kids in that really vulnerable age bracket, yeah.
Okay. Here's my next question, doctor. So, I have obviously a different relationship with my kids than my wife, right? I think they tell her a lot more stuff, and maybe I'm a little jealous of that. Yeah, maybe I am. But I'm just like, it's just different. I'm assuming that's normal, that men and women are
No,
just going to
but
have
I would.
different relationships with kids.
But have you asked your kid, like, or kids to just be like, hey, is there something that I could do better so that you would feel more comfortable talking to me?
No, but I can do that.
Yeah,
So,
I would do that, because they might tell you, they might not, but if they do tell you, that's information.
right, right, right.
And I think even to say, like, I want to be the best dad I can be, and I know I'm not perfect, but
Mm-hmm.
I feel like this is such a critical time in your life, but maybe it's not as critical as I think it is, but sometimes I feel
Mm-hmm.
like I'm not, you know, like there's something that's missing, between us,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't
Mm-hmm.
know what that is. Do you have
Mm-hmm.
any ideas? Because I don't know what that is.
Right, right. And then me personally, because I had my own struggles. So I went away to two treatment centers. I was gone for about 70 days from my house, right? And when I was having my struggles, I tried to hide it, but I was physically shaking and I couldn't hide it. And then when I came back, obviously I was I was like, listen, I missed a lot of stuff. So I was like, I'm sorry I missed all those things, and was gone for so long. And I mean, they were great. They were like, Daddy, that we're just happy that you're better. Don't worry about that. So I think kids are also very understanding, I would think.
Yeah, but also like let's say this, you're not like there's still a fear there. Is dad going to go away? Like if I tell him anything too big, right?
Right, yeah.
There's still probably a little of a kid glove kind of vibe. If I were to guess, I could be
Yeah,
totally wrong about that,
yeah.
but if I put myself in your kid's shoes, I would say, yeah, they're kind of like feeling it out a little
Nervous.
bit.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, a little bit nervous. I would be a little bit nervous, right? If I'm them,
Sure.
I don't want to
Of
say
course.
anything that might upset him or whatever. So, you know, there's that feeling of potentially walking on eggshells. Again, I think it's like going back and saying, like, here, I hear you. Like, I was gone for a period of time, and I can imagine that that rocked
Scary.
your world. You made you scared, all of that. Every day, I'm working on it, and you know, I feel like I've learned so much, and you can talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
But I put myself in your shoes, and I can imagine that that was wild for you, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
and they may say, "No, no, dad, it was okay." Like, what? Like, no, it's not okay. Like, that's
Right,
scary
right.
for kids, right? Like,
Right.
we have to
Scary for
so
me.
things that are scary. But I think also being able to highlight, I appreciate so much you guys in this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I
Mm-hmm.
appreciate so much the fact that were able to be, kind of keep going to school, keep doing this when I was really struggling. Like that takes a
Mm-hmm.
lot of strength and
Mm-hmm.
really take the opportunity to, you know, em- empower them. Like that's, you guys have like a different experience than a lot of other kids have.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That truly makes them have more empathy, makes them stronger, makes them more aware, so long as you use those moments to be teachable moments.
I think we've learned a lot in this teachable moment for this session here. I know I have, so I really appreciate you, Jen. Maybe there's kind of, I know it's hard to do, but maybe three takeaways when you think about parents and teens of this kind of conversation. What might be the three takeaways?
Sure. I would say one thing that's really important if we think about like contact, so creating like eye contact, physical contact, even just making sure that you're in the space. And I don't mean in an annoying way,
Mm-hmm.
but sometimes like just, kind of like if a kid's in their room, just being like, hey, I'm just saying hi.
Right,
That's
right.
it. Don't be annoying about it, but just be like present, right? So there's
Mm-hmm.
that being present. The other piece is I'll say is like the vulnerability part. Like it's so important that you're not perfect, right?
Yes.
And that you can show and don't like overshare, but that idea of
Yeah,
like
yeah,
I'm human, we're all human, we're all going to mess up sometimes, but we're all going to get through it. And in fact, we're going to
right,
learn when we mess up and we get through it. That's an important message. And then shared experiences. I think also, you know, creating shared experiences, and they don't have to be like, you know, mind blowing vacations. I'm talking about just, hey, let's go. Do you want to like go get like a soda and a donut at like whatever, or
yeah,
go take a walk at whatever? And kids, many times they don't want to do exactly what you want to do, but find out what they want to do.
yeah,
Even if it's like, well, Dad, I want to go to Sephora and get like the new lip balm. Okay, go in to Sephora and go try the new lip balm, or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
like tune into what they want and make those interactions instead of you staying in your car doing social media or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Go in and just be like, I don't know, I'm just curious.
Right,
Like,
right, right.
I want to learn about you and create
Mm-hmm.
those shared experiences. So yeah, I would say that.
I love it. I love it, Jen. So, where can people find you? I know we didn't talk about too much about Promly, or what's the best way to find information about what you're doing, etc.
Sure. Check out promly.org, or if you have a 13 to 19-year-old, certainly have them download the Promly app on the App Store. And, anybody can hit me up on LinkedIn at Jen Libby. I think it says MSWLCSW.
There's a lot of
Uh,
letters.
there's a lot of letters there,
Yeah, yeah.
but I would love to be able to connect. Certainly, we always look for, passionate people to get involved. We've had many adults get involved as volunteers, but also just as, collaborative change makers. There's way more that we do. We'll get into it on another podcast, but I do think, sometimes dads are so, um, they don't think of themselves as being super important because mom's doing a heavy lift in many ways,
Yes.
um, particularly dads in the finance world. And
Mm-hmm.
I have to say, um, it's profound. Dads have this immense power to be able to make a difference I think it's, many times we think of dads with sons, but dads with daughters. It's so important. Dad's role with daughters is really important. I also think, and I didn't say this, one thing we do in our family is, because we have many children, we will plan like a weekend where, like, my husband will take one of our kids away for the weekend. And it's
Right.
not sports or anything like that. It's just truly like a dad daughter trip. I'll do a mom daughter trip. And we
Nice.
do that at various ages with all the kids to kind of really bring that connection home. And I think that's a good choice. You have opportunities with your 14 and 16
Yes,
year
I
old.
do that sometimes. Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome, Jen. I want to thank everyone that's listening to us. I'll actually also excited. I'm going to Houston tomorrow to speak at EO over there. And then if you want to find out more information about the Real and the foundation, please go to thereal.care. Other than that, have a spooky Halloween and see you later. Goodbye.
Sounds good. Thanks, Shawn. Have a good one.